It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does on a Monday, and lots to get to over the next 60 minutes. A jam-packed show. College basketball, even a little NASCAR, women's NCAA basketball. We start things out, though, in hockey, and we're not going to waste a single second. I rarely open the show with a guest, but today was a special exception with Alex Ovechkin scoring goal 895, becoming the all-time goal-scoring leader in NHL history. And here to talk about it with us, we are so fortunate to have Kenny Albert, who was on the call for TNT. So you find out you get this game, and obviously you're hoping, to be a spectator to history and call it. What's going through your mind as you're watching this all unfold yesterday?
Well, first I'll take you back a couple of weeks. Our crew, our TNT crew, myself, Eddie Olczyk, and Brian Boucher, we were originally scheduled on Wednesday for a New York Rangers Minnesota Wild game, and then TNT added the Capitals Carolina Hurricanes because Ovechkin was within 6 or 7 at that point. And then a couple of days later, we find out we were going to do the game yesterday at UBS Arena. So obviously you'd love to be involved in a record-setting game or a record-tying game. So we're in Raleigh on Wednesday, and he scores number 892. So now we're thinking, okay, they have one more game Friday, and then we'll be there on Sunday. So I'm in a hotel room in Atlanta watching Friday's game, personally hoping he doesn't score 3. I know the fans in Washington would have loved to have seen it happen at home. And, I have so much respect for him that he did not want to set the record into an empty net. So he didn't go out there when the Blackhawks pulled Spencer Knight on Friday.
Yeah.
Then he almost had a couple of chances after that when Knight was back in the crease. So I'm watching the game Friday. He scores the first goal early. He scores the second goal. And a lot of us who were involved yesterday were hoping that would be it, and that was the case. So we were there yesterday, and it's really hard to describe what the day was like. To have Wayne Gretzky in our booth before the game, who's one of our colleagues at TNT. Sure. He was on the pregame show with Liam McHugh, the gang, and then came back during the third period to spend some time with us. The commissioner was on hand. Just such excitement in the building. And in the first period, he had a deflection pretty early in the game. Ilya Sorokin made the save. And then after the first period, a couple of us were chatting amongst ourselves and said, well, if the Capitals can, get a power play, then look out. And sure enough, that was the case. He scores the power play goal. And, again, to be a part of history and to be on that call with my partners was something I'll never forget.
For people who didn't see it, you've been sleeping in a cave. Here it is.
What's going through Ovi's mind here, Eddie? He wondered why they turned the puck over in the offensive zone. He had to skate all the way back into his own zone there. But no, look, he's just trying to find a seam and know that, hey, you're going to try to force it to him if he's open. Here is Ovechkin. Shoots! He scores! He scores! Number 895!
I'm not sure if many people knew what to expect from Islander fans or how they would respond. Was it what you expected in terms of the crowd response?
It was, and there were a lot of Capital fans in the building. There were so many red jerseys, so it was a bit of a mixed crowd. And the Islanders won the game, so the fans got to see history, and they also, the Islander fans saw their team win, and that was similar to Wednesday. I thought the Carolina Hurricanes fans did a tremendous job when we were in Raleigh, and they were winning the game 4-0 when Ovechkin scored that night. But the fans paid their respects, cheering loudly when he scored the goal, the chants of Ovi yesterday. I think the fans also felt so excited that they were a part of history and that they were at the game to witness that goal.
I wrote a column for MSNBC that's coming out today on this, and I make the argument that in many ways his 895 is more impressive in some ways than Gretzky's 894 in that, and I know they did it in the same number of games. I went and looked back. there was basically a goal per game being scored more in that Gretzky generation than there was in this one. I know look, Gretzky's the greatest of all time when we talk about hockey players, the points total, all of that. How do you take these accomplishments and put them side by side?
Well, a couple of things. It's a bit of a misnomer that they did it in the same amount of games. I know a lot of people put that out there. Gretzky actually scored his .894 7 games earlier than Ovechkin did. They wound up, at this point, they've played the same number of games, but Gretzky actually didn't score over his last 8 games, so he got there a little quicker. So many thoughts on the subject. Gretzky still has more assists than anyone else has points. So I don't think that record will ever be broken. Wasn't sure the goals record would ever be broken. An interesting perspective yesterday in chatting with Patrick Waugh, the Islanders head coach. He at one time held the record for wins by a goaltender. He broke Terry Sawchuk's record, and then Marty Brodeur broke Waugh's record. So it was interesting to hear from Waugh about what was going through his mind during the chase for the wins record. But, the other thing is Gretzky probably could have scored 200 to 300 goals more than he did if he wanted to. He was such a great passer. You can't take either accomplishment away from either player. Wayne Gretzky was so gracious yesterday and all throughout the week and the months leading up to it. We saw him in the locker room after the game on Friday, on the ice, giving his speech yesterday, and then in the locker room after the game, and talked a lot about Gordie Howe and the reverence that he had for Mr. Hockey and, what it was like. We asked him when we had Wayne in the booth yesterday, what was going through your mind today? Were you thinking back to that day when you broke Gordie Howe's record in 1994? And, how about the symmetry? Gordie Howe held the record for 31 years, 1963 through 94.
Amazing.
Gretzky held the record for 31 years. So we were joking, who's going to break it in 2056?
I only have 10 seconds. If they win a Stanley Cup, do you think he retires or does he play it out next year with one more year left on his deal?
Great question. I wouldn't profess to even try to guess the answer to that question. Does have one more year on the deal. Does he want to get to 900? He's at 895 right now. What if he doesn't get to 900 before the end of this season? But Caps hope to have a big playoff run ahead and should be very exciting.
Kenny Albert, TNT, was on the call yesterday. He's also got the book out. You can see it behind him, A Mic for All Seasons. Go and grab that in bookstores as well. Thank you, my friend, on a busy day. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jason. Really appreciate it.
We're coming back.
What's going through his mind here, Eddie? He wondered why they turned the puck over in the offensive zone. He had to skate all the way back into his own zone there. But no, look, he's just trying to find a seam and know that, hey, you're going to try to force it to him if he's open. Here's Ovechkin. Shoots! He scores! He scores! Number 895!
We should all be so lucky as to be able to call a record-breaking goal like that. Kenny Albert had it over on TNT with that old chick yesterday. Welcome back to the show. We talked with Kenny Albert in the last segment about being on the mic and the atmosphere and everything surrounding Alex Ovechkin scoring goal. 895 yesterday, breaking Wayne Gretzky's once thought to believe unbreakable record. We continue the conversation on it now. We say hello for the first time today, to our friend Sam Yarnell. And look, you're a sort of a resident and somebody who knows that area well, that part of the country. A lot of fans made their way up to UBS Arena on Sunday for that game. Sam Yarnell, as Alex Ovechkin broke the record. I kind of thought he might wait and break it at home this week, but they got it out of the way. He's got 895, and he's the greatest goal scorer in the history of the NHL.
Yeah, Jason, no kidding. And to your point about great calls of this goal, let's not let it go unrecognized that Joe Beninati and Craig Laughlin have been on the call for the Capitals for 20 plus years. They called Alex Ovechkin's first goal, and they called goal number 895. And that video where they do the side by side, I think Capitals social media put it out, is very, very, very cool to watch. Poetic, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. 21 years exactly to the day after the Capitals get the win the lottery and get the rights to pick Ovechkin first overall in that NHL draft. And, you know, here we are 21 years later, and he's the greatest goal scorer of all time. It truly is magic. It was magic on ice at UBS Arena, like you said. Ticket prices were absolutely bonkers. I think by the time they were closed, nosebleed seats were in like the $700 range. But hey, you gotta pay a pretty penny if you want to see history, and that's what everybody got to do yesterday out on Long Island.
Yeah, they certainly did. And I talked about this. I have a column coming out today on MSNBC about this, that I had weeks to write it because we kind of knew he was going to break the record barring something unforeseen. And my take on it is, I think, and I couldn't get Kenny Albert, he's such a pro, he's not going to get drawn into this question of comparing it to Gretzky's mark. And, yeah, he talked about Gretzky, and he was very gracious in sort of talking about it. But I think it's more impressive. You go and look at the era. Gretzky played in an era where there was basically almost a goal per game more scored than the era that Ovechkin played in. You look at the parity around the league. I think his goal scoring mark in a lot of ways is more impressive. And I think it's one of the most impressive records. And we talked about this maybe a month or two ago. I think it's the most impressive of all records in these individual records that we see being broken now, whether it's LeBron, whether it's Brady, all-time yards, all-time touchdowns, Bonds, the home runs, because all of those things I think are sort of muted a little by the eras they're in, the home run stuff for Bonds, the performance-enhancing drugs allegedly, all of that stuff. This, to me, seems the purest in so many regards of all of these records being broken. Am I wrong?
Well, I'm not going to get into the reasons that it's not pure like a couple of days after it happened, because I'm not going to tarnish the guy's legacy immediately. But I'll just say, like, personally, I put it definitely up there. Probably, I've said on the show before, probably one. It's right up there for me with Barry and LeBron. And I think now you've got a big three. I think it's Ovechkin, and if he gets to 1,000, like we talked about, last week on the show?
Yeah, that's not going to happen, though. I've had some conversations with some people around the game. His contract's up at the end of next year. He's not going to play beyond this contract. That's the impression I've been given with the people I've talked to. He's not. He's going to get to 900. You know, if he decides to play next year. As a matter of fact, our friend Dennis Bernstein, I'll even reveal this because he and I were talking about it off air. He thinks if they win a Stanley Cup, he may not even play next year.
Yeah, and that's very fair. Getting to them winning a Stanley Cup in what is famously the hardest postseason in hockey, with one of the oldest goal scorers or oldest cornerstones of their team, especially in that playoffs, would be very interesting. And again, if they get there, we can cross that bridge when we get there for sure. But I do think that there's, especially this season, right? I understand the conversation that you're referring to. And I agree with you, and I think that coming into this season, that was the prevailing thought, that after this contract, which expires after next year, the reason the Capitals gave him this contract was to break the record. I don't think anyone expected him to score 42-plus goals this season, especially in a season where he missed 15-plus games, right? So, and especially in an athlete like Alex Ovechkin, think about the history of that guy's career. He gets fires lit in him by his own personal performance. This, to me, is something that could power him for at least 2 more, maybe 3 more years in the NHL, and that's when you're talking about 1,000-goal range.
Yeah, I mean, he plays 2 more years, he's got a if he plays 2 more healthy years, he's got a shot at 1,000. If you look at his current, sort of trajectory,
and
I thought
frankly,
it. Look, I'm not going to lie, I thought it, and talked about it with somebody the other day because I was like, could he get to 1,000?
It was me.
Yeah,
it was me.
We did. Yeah, because I thought 1,000 was a possibility, but. If I had to guess, I don't know.
You'd get a good betting number on it. Don't get me wrong. You'd get a great betting number on it.
Yes, you would.
But I think whatever number the book would throw out would not reflect the actual value of that position.
One more thing to throw in on the the how great this record is. Go look at the goalie pads.
Yeah.
Go look at the goalie pads. I went and did homework on this. Go look at the pads they were wearing 20, 30 years ago versus the body armor basically they've got all around them now. And you say, in some regards, that's more impressive because the pads are way bigger now than they were 20 and 30 years ago. Just another sort of thing to throw into the equation as we try to compare. And look, Gretzky, as I said to Kenny Albert, Gretzky's the greatest of all time. He's got more assists than anybody else has points. I mean, it's stupid. I'm just comparing goal scorer for goal scorer. And Kenny brings up a good point that Wayne Gretzky could have scored more if he wanted to. But he was playing with some of the greatest players, of his generation as well. Playing with Messier and those guys. I mean, something to be said for it. It's always a fun debate. It's why we do this for a living is to have those debates. Let's debate who's going to win the NCAA championship game. Houston, Florida. We'll talk about it next. Bill Bender's here. All right. We'll talk some women's college basketball in 10 minutes. Joe's Zone from the CBS affiliate in Hartford, Connecticut. Sister station to one of our affiliates, Wax TV. Talk about the UConn women routing South Carolina to claim another national championship. First since 2016. But we talk about the men's game and the NCAA championship game being battled on Monday night between Florida and Houston. We say hello to our friend Bill Bender's here, ladies and gentlemen. We normally talk college football with him, but he is a man of all seasons, a jack of all trades, who loves to talk about college basketball as well and writes about it with the Sporting News. So what was your reaction? Because I ran into the studio and had to make like a YouTube short on Saturday night when I watched Houston rally against those choke artists from Duke and go and take that game away from the Blue Devils. What were you thinking as you watched it?
So when you explain our job and our field to others, I can do it this way. I had a complete game preview, prediction, lines, everything ready for Duke, Florida. Like, it was great. I was like, this is actually pretty good analysis. This is how I think this game might go. And when they got it down to 6, I said to my editor, actually at 5 minutes left, I said to my editor, let's not even start reading that yet. Because when you can play defense like that, I got to see Duke close. Now, did I at any point think that Houston was going to win the game at 5 minutes? No. But the sequence in the last 30 seconds, Jason, I don't know how to explain that. I mean, what part was the worst? Probably the inability to get the ball in bounds on the first one, where you had to blow a timeout. And you could tell Duke was pressing from that moment on to the end. If you look back at that in the body language, Duke was pressing a little bit.
Yeah, I see the same thing, and it's almost like they thought with a minute left the game was over. They forgot it's, college basketball game is 40 minutes, not 39 minutes. And Cooper Flagg was so good down the stretch of this game, and that's what's going to be forgotten, by the way, because of the way it ended. Cooper Flagg was so good in this game up until the final, minute, where you kind of needed some leadership in that moment. And it just felt like nobody stepped up in that leadership role in the final seconds.
No, I mean, and what part do you need? Is it simple as make a free throw or, box out and not allow a dunk? I mean, the three-pointer, that happens when teams are down. They hit three-pointers at the end of games. I don't know what you guys' opinion of Cooper Flagg's foul was. I think it was a little bit tic-tac, but at the same time, just back off, Yeah,
he's boxed out in that spot. What are you doing?
Right. Like, it's, let it happen. I didn't like that call. I didn't like the officiating, and I'm not one to pick on refs, but I thought the officiating in both games was very awful, bad to awful. And here's one other thing I'll say. I'll ask you guys another question. What did you think about all these reviews in the final?
Oh my God, both games.
Yeah, I think that was ridiculous.
I wonder if that has some impact on a team late in the game when you have those things going on.
Oh. Well, like any sport, right? It just maintains momentum. So if it's, if it was a Houston dunk that was getting reviewed for whatever reason, Duke was having to sit with that for so much longer. Bill, on the other side, obviously one of the more underrated because of the late game comebacks of the Final Four was that Florida team coming back in the second half against Auburn. When we look at this final, though, matchup with two teams that went down early and came back late, what do you kind of take away from that, and who are you looking to back in this final?
Well, whose moment is going to be? Is it Walter Clayton? Because it's kind of been Walter Clayton's tournament. Back-to-back 30-point games, the way that he brought them back. Texas Tech was a good dry run for what we might see tonight. Because do Florida's post players, can they handle Houston's post players? They're big. Roberts is big. Tugler's big. And they were physical and strong. And I don't think Florida's post players played well at all against Texas Tech. So that's one thing to watch. And then the other, is Houston, do they make them uncomfortable? What wins? This is one of those classic offense-defense matchups. You guys know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But does the defense make them uncomfortable from the standpoint of Florida just starts taking, they might seem like uncontested threes, but they're not high percentage threes. And I think that's something to watch throughout the game.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to see, Bill, from like a broader perspective, because we haven't had a ton of time to talk to you during the tournament. It's something that Jason and I have discussed a ton of is the chalk in this tournament. What's your takeaway from 4 1 seeds in the Final Four and obviously this Florida-Houston final matchup?
Well, I wish I would have talked to you 2 weeks ago. Then we could have collectively sold John Calipari as a sleeper, which is what we had to do when they were a number 10 seed in the Sweet 16. And I don't mind all number ones, but I don't want it every year. I remember in 2008, we had all number ones, and I'm trying to think. North Carolina got blown out by Kansas in that Final Four. And then Memphis beat UCLA. And the national championship game was amazing. Memphis, Kansas, missed free throws at the end. Mario Chalmers, we know the rest. I like those kind of Final Fours every once in a while. Do I want them every year? No, you need a little spice in the tournament. You need McNeese to win another game. As much as Amir Khan came and went through the spotlight, you need that for another game. You need Drake to win another game, and move on. One of the things I'm most concerned about is those one bid leagues went 2-24 in the tournament, and seeds 1 through 4 won by an average of 23 points per game. If I think that's healthy for the tournament, absolutely not.
And when you look at the last 2 years, right, 2 double-digit seeds have made it to the second weekend. And you're talking about an NC State team coming off of a conference tournament win in a Power 5 conference. And this year, a Calipari-led Arkansas team out of the Power SEC. So I'm totally with you there. On that subject, real quick, Bill, we only got about a minute left. But the SEC this year in college basketball was this powerhouse. Do you think that plays into this national championship at all? Or can Houston keep up with that insane basketball conference?
I don't think the SEC needs to win it, but it wouldn't hurt. When you have a banner year where you have 14 tournament teams, 7 Sweet 16 teams, multiple Final Four teams, you got to cut down a net. And it wouldn't hurt the league to have somebody other than Kentucky do it. Now Florida has done that twice, so it's not like it's never happened. But I do think for a 13-year drought, if they win, their drought's over. Then the only one that has a prolonged drought is my Big Ten. The homerism that I show in the Big Ten to you guys every year, and now that drought goes on 25 years. That's tough to live with.
The SEC Basketball Conference. Always appreciate you, Bill Bender.
Thank you.
From the men to the women, the UConn women's basketball team claiming a national championship. Joe Zone swings by the show to talk about it next. And this Monday edition of SportsWrap continues. We've previewed the men's championship matchup between Houston and Florida. As shocking as it is that is the matchup we have. Now let's recap First Huskies national championship for the women's program since 2016. And I get to go to a trusted old friend to talk about it, Joe Zone, the longtime sports director at WFSB, Channel 3 in Hartford, Eyewitness News. One of the very first people that ever saw me in front of a camera and said, "Hey, there's hope for you, kid." I appreciate you giving me some time because I know it's been busy since the Huskies won the national championship. Look, this one's got to be, I mean, they're all special, I'm sure, to Geno, and there's been so many, but this one's got to mean something more considering it's been so long, and now he's doing it in a different era of women's college basketball, really.
Yeah, Jason, all those things you say are true. What he has said now is, and we got finished with him, it's amazing how long he goes in his postgame. He does the podium, then he walks down the hallway, does random people, and then the very last thing he does, the local media, who's been with him for so many years, who've covered him from back in the day when nobody was covering women's college basketball. But as he said, there's no difference between the fifth and the sixth and the ninth and 10th. But what made this one special for him, because he thought Paige Beckers needed to have one, as great as her career was there. And he was really happy that she got it. Not so much he gets it, but that the seniors get it, and she's one of the ones that he was really rooting for to get that.
And talk about that, because now she puts herself, sort of in this pantheon of great UConn players, whether it's Rebecca Lobo, Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird. I mean, that is a very special group that she finds herself in.
Well, there's a lot of talk about that covering the team this year. Did she need to win one to put herself on the Mount Rushmore of UConn women's basketball? And clearly regarded as one of the all-time greats, this is the one, I think, and others think, that puts her on the Mount Rushmore of UConn women's basketball. This is the one that really seals the deal for her. Great career no matter what, but this is the one that makes it, okay, she got that one with all the problems that she had, the injury. Last year I think they had a game postponed because they didn't have enough players to suit up. I mean, that's what it's been. If it wasn't last year, it was 2 years ago. But definitely, it's been a long, hard ride for them, and this is special for her. And I think that's the thing Geno appreciated the most.
Yeah, and you could see the emotion sort of pour out of her. We were just looking at it as you were talking about it. The emotion sort of pouring out of her, and it does bookend this amazing career for her there at UConn. Go back to Geno for a second, though.
Yep.
Look, a lot of people were questioning, could he ever win the big one again in this era of women's college basketball, which isn't 3 or 4 teams, it's 10 or 11 teams now. And that may not sound like a lot to a lot of people, but you and I remember the days where it was UConn and a couple other teams, and that was the only chance you had of beating UConn. This one kind of hits different for Geno. Did you get the sense that he understood the significance of that, or is it not set in yet?
No, I think so. As he pointed out, as he talked to the local media tonight after the game, UConn gets a lot of the credit for the fact that there are more teams now who are competing and have a chance to win a national championship. UConn lifted everybody else up. People, they were not very well liked as they kept winning and winning and winning championships.
No.
But so what they ended up doing was, okay, if we can't beat them, let's join them. Let's get better. So women's college basketball got better. They got better coaches. They recruited better. They invested more money. All of that comes after Geno and the UConn program became such a dominant factor. And I think, and the other thing he talked about tonight, as the rest of women's college basketball is getting better, he's got a 3-4 year slump there at UConn where he doesn't have a full team. He starts with a full team, but injuries hurt him a lot. AZ Fudd missed a season. Paige missed a season. This year was the first time in like 5 years where he had 3 players. And if you look at his championships, he always had 3 players on that team who could be the star on any given night like he has now.
What stood out to you in terms of this sort of end-to-end domination in this game, because there are times where this Huskies team in this tournament, or at least certainly against USC, where while they were up, you were like, man, my God, they should be blowing the doors off this team without Juju Watkins. It felt like this was as complete a performance as they had in this tournament.
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me, I've talked about it in stories I've done, is how at different times in different games, different players go on spurts. In one game, it's Strong who gets the first 10. Then she cools off. Chen gets the next 7 in the second quarter. Azzi goes off and gets 12 in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, Paige is doing her thing. So whenever it seemed you needed somebody to make sure they kept this thing going, kept them in the game, needed a big basket, it could have been somebody different, and you never knew who it was, but you just always had a feeling somebody would step up. And I'm not even talking yet about the guys coming off the bench, who, by the way, were starters on last year's team. Now they're players 6 and 7.
Before I let you go, I got 30 seconds. Any chance Geno retires off of this?
No. Nope, I don't think so, because as he said yesterday, every day he says he's going to quit, and then something happens in a practice or in a game or somewhere where he says, I got to keep doing this. And he says there's so many people who rely on him to keep doing this and making this happen. He said it's harder to do now at 71, and boy, can I identify with that. It's harder to do, but he's not ready to walk away. Take my word for it, he's back.
That's surprising to me, because I thought there was a chance if he got this one, given everything it took to get it, that he would hang it up. That surprises me. Joe Zone, I always appreciate you, my friend. Does a great job. Channel 3 in Hartford. Keep up the good work, my friend. Always good to talk to you.
Back at you. Same thing. Thank you.
We're coming back. Welcome back to this Monday edition of the show. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes with a little bit of baseball. Big contract news there. And some news from the world of golf. It's Masters week, and while we certainly can't just grab a name out of the hat and tell you who's going to win the Masters, although we'll try to, we can tell you who's not going to win the Masters. That's coming up in a few minutes. We do our Monday wraparound NASCAR segment, Fridays and Mondays. Friday, we preview the races. Monday, we recap the races, and to help us do that today, look at this guy. It's Brian Twining, who I recently met while out at the NASCAR race, the Cup Series race in Las Vegas out here. Recently met him, and he's hanging out with us on this Monday edition of the show to recap a wild finish in Darlington as part of Throwback Weekend for NASCAR. And Denny Hamlin, back-to-back winner. He wins in Martinsville last week. He wins in overtime this week out at Darlington. And Brian, if you're somebody that's holding a Ryan Blaney or a Tyler Reddick ticket, you're probably scratching your head right now in a little bit of shock at the fact that you're not cashing a winner.
Yeah, considering I had hefty live tickets on both of those guys, I am still trying to recover from the end of that race there. Although a lot of people are in social media saying that the race was boring because William Byron led an amazing 243 laps from the green flag, which I believe is the most consecutive laps led ever at a Darlington race. So congrats to him. But in what has become all too common in the NASCAR Cup Series, and I guess in all of NASCAR, we get some weird late race caution, which kind of resets the field, taking away the win from who was the best car, and that being Ryan Blaney.
How do you feel about the late race cautions? Because we see it in so many races. I've talked about it with Tino in the past and sort of how NASCAR handles it, and drivers being punished at the front of the pack for something that happened somewhere else in the race. How do you, as a NASCAR aficionado, as a fan of the sport, and not just somebody who has money on it and winds up not cashing a ticket, but from the NASCAR fan perspective?
I can see it from the point of view that it creates more excitement, and the overtime restarts, the green-white checkered restarts are very exciting because it's a matter of who gets on the gas better and whose tires stick. But from a pure racing perspective, it kind of ruins the day because in the end, we kind of want to see the best car or the fastest car find victory lane. And especially when you're betting on this and you kind of have that pinpointed and that guy doesn't cross the checkered first, it's extra frustrating. So I guess it is kind of annoying, but it's just the nature of the sport.
Yeah, it is. And what do we say about Denny Hamlin here and sort of the way this NASCAR season has played out? You know, you've got Christopher Bell winning, 3 straight races. Now you've got Denny Hamlin winning 2 straight. Hamlin couldn't win for love of money for 30-plus races. Now he wins 2 in a row. I mean, how do you sort of put these things together?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a reversal of luck for Denny. I mean, the last couple of years with him trying to still search out that long-awaited championship, nothing has seemed to fall his way. And then this week, he winds up being in the catbird seat, being the luckiest one of the group, with Kyle Larson getting spun by Bubba Wallace there, bringing the yellow out, and his pit crew, who has been a topic of conversation with the way that they have been using the jack and being able to make their pit stops so fast, getting the job done once again, and him running away and finding the victory. And then we head this week to a track where Denny Hamlin is amongst the best there too. So we're going to be talking about him potentially joining Team Christopher Bell and winning 3 straight races.
And Denny Hamlin, actually, after the race, they were like, anybody want to thank? He was like, yeah, Kyle Larson. and how funny is it that we get Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson tangling up again?
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that the same guys continue to find each other and always create polarizing topics in the sport. It's good for the sport to be part of the news cycle, but at the end of the day, at the racing product, it doesn't really help it, in my opinion.
No, it doesn't. But for storylines and look, we're in the story business. I mean, I think we're okay with that. And in the case of Bubba, really, it feels like, other than Phoenix, I think, where he blew out a tire, he had a brake go or something like that. It's really the first race in which he hasn't been, it feels like, top 10 or top 15.
Yeah, and I think on Bubba's case, also a lot of other drivers too, like Ryan Preece, for instance, a lot of those guys got stuck on the wrong end of another earlier caution, which came out at right after a pit cycle began, pinning guys a lap down or just kind of forcing them to have to then drive through the field with everybody on equal tires when they had track position prior to that. So, when you look at this race from a blimp perspective, there's a lot of guys who got results that didn't necessarily earn those results, both good and bad.
Real quick before I let you go in the last minute here, looking ahead to Bristol next weekend, what do you have your eye on, maybe in trying to grab some value early? What are you looking at?
So there's 2 triples being attempted here this weekend. Denny Hamlin going for a 3rd straight win in 2025. And Kyle Larson is once again running all 3 series, looking to go for the triple weekend here at Bristol, a track that he absolutely crushed the field last fall.
Wow. You think Larson can do it?
If anybody in the series can, it's definitely him. But again, we saw it happen this weekend. We saw it happen in Miami. Nothing is guaranteed in NASCAR.
No, that's true. I'm still holding out for Bubba. I'm waiting for Bubba to get a win. We had him on the show. He talked about how difficult it is to sort of get a win and putting himself in position. We're still rooting for Bubba here to get a win, driving in that Michael Jordan owned car.
When you run as consistently well as he has with the speed he has, it's coming.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what I keep saying. Brian Twining joining us for the first time. Check him out over on Bleacher Nation. Brian, appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We're coming back with more Sports Wrap on this Monday. Odds and Ends wraps it up next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Great show tomorrow. Clint Hurdle will be here. Former big league skipper. Got a book out. Talk to him about a whole bunch of baseball stuff. Looking forward to that. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. We're available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, go and check it out. Also, we are doing some big things on the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Clips from the show, extended clips, stuff that doesn't make it into the show because we simply run out of time. Some of our conversations tend to go longer. Sometimes Sam decides to ask meaningless questions of David Auriemma. You name it, we've got it somewhere in the show over on that YouTube channel. So go and subscribe to our YouTube channel today. Without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends presented by our friends over at Edge Boost. Are you making money extra every day from your sports betting? I'm always about finding ways to take sports betting to the next level, and that's exactly why I am pumped to tell you about our friends over at Edge Boost, the financial platform paying you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit. With the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. Free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're doing already. It is a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit, and it'll never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. Stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet to learn more and sign up today, or just scan the QR code right there and use my promo code WRAP, WRAP, for a free account upgrade with our friends over at Edge Boost. All right, Sam Yarnell, here we go. Odds and ends, the end of the stalemate between the Toronto Blue Jays and their star, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He will be a Toronto Blue Jay for life, 14 years and $500 million. They get the deal done.
Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts.
What's wrong? Why?
First of all, it's
so
a day
dour?
late and $1 short for the Toronto Blue Jays. Here's why. Juan Soto, other notable free agents, openly came out this past offseason after they signed with other teams and said, why were you not so interested in the Toronto Blue Jays? Oh, well, because you see, they've got this tendency to not pay their stars. If they had done this in December, November, it would have been perfect. It would have been amazing. It would have been great. But they waited until after opening day. They kicked the can down the road that long, and I get it. I understand that when you talk about management with the Toronto Blue Jays, there are more steps than all 29 of the other baseball clubs have to go through, I should say, with regard to getting money approved, getting these sort of contracts actually across the finish line. But all that said, this guy is the cornerstone of their franchise. They've made that very, very, very clear. And now you're talking about a legacy cornerstone of your franchise. You got to lock that guy up much earlier than this. And I can't believe they let it get to this point.
I'll be curious. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
My other takeaway is this: we've found ourselves fully enthralled in an era of wildly long contracts in baseball.
Yep.
The first of which that's going to come up is going to be Bryce Harper's, and I believe they're paying him through 2031. I want to say it was 13 years in 2018. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 2-3 years, the Phillies are looking to trade Bryce Harper. Because quite frankly, look at his production over the last couple of years. It's not increasing anymore. The guy is plateaued, if at best. So the nature of these long contracts has become very interesting to me, and obviously the Ohtani and Soto ones stick out like a sore thumb, because I think we're going to start seeing these teams move off of them closer to the end of the deal.
Well, we thought that might happen with Mike Trout. Doesn't appear that's happening anytime soon. No, I get it. I'm just saying. There's also Bo Bichette, which has to be taken into consideration, and what the Blue Jays do with that. Odds and ends, the end of a drought for Brian Harman, who wins the Valero Texas Open yesterday. First time he's won since 2023. And look, we could sit here all day and get into the odds to win the Masters, and we'll obviously talk in great deal about the Masters as we go through this week. And while we don't know who's going to win the Masters this week, we can guarantee who's not going to win the Masters this week, and that's the guy who won this week, Brian Harman, because the guy who wins the week before the Masters has never won the Masters. So congratulations, Brian Harman, for taking yourself out of contention to win at Augusta.
Yeah, it's the best week of the year in golf, right?
It
feels
really
like
is.
spring is finally here, and springtime in Augusta. There's really nothing better. I can't wait to get everything going down there and do our little Masters preview over the next couple of days.
Yeah, we will definitely talk plenty about that. Scotty Scheffler, by the way, is your favorite at plus 450. Rory McIlroy at plus 650. Then it's John Rahm at 14-1. Wow, Ludwig Oberg is the fourth best odds, along with Colin Morikawa.
He's been playing incredibly good golf recently.
It just surprises me to see that name so close to the top for winning the Masters. But okay, I guess it is. It's going to do it for us. We're out of time. Busy show today. Do I have time to thank everybody? Joe Zone, Bill Bender, Kenny Albert, Brian Twining, you, Sam Yarnell, everybody for watching. Clint Hurdle on the show tomorrow. The former big league skipper stops by. Looking forward to that. That's it. I have nothing else left to say. We'll see you tomorrow.